We still don't know for sure whether Donald Trump was hit by a bullet, whether he was hit by glass fragments, whether he was hit by shrapnel. We don't have those details. What is the actual injury to Donald Trump's ear that's under that bandage? Shouldn't we know that by now?
So how insane is Joy Reid at MSNBC? I mean, we've been showing you clip after clip after clip for the vast many months of Joy Reid's slow decline into insane dementia. But this latest one might take the cake. I warn you, it isn't pretty.
We still don't know for sure whether Donald Trump was hit by a bullet, whether he was hit by glass fragments, whether he was hit by shrapnel. We don't have those details. We actually have no details from his physician, even though this man is still a Secret Service protected, and presidential candidate. We knew almost nothing. Why? Why don't we know that much? We know that 3 people were shot. 1 person, unfortunately, was killed at the rally. We don't know where they were sitting or standing relative to him. We don't know why, for 9 full seconds, Donald Trump was allowed to stand back up during an active shooter situation, even though they, at that point, had said the shooter was down. How would they have known if there were more shooters or not? Nobody knew. That there could have been 5 shooters for all they knew. Yet they allowed him to stand up in the middle of that, crisis and pose for a photo and fist pump the air so he could get the iconic photo. And then they allowed him to stand up again outside of the SUV instead of just shoving him into the SUV. That seems really unusual. What is the actual injury to Donald Trump's ear that's under that bandage? Shouldn't we know that by now? It's weird. And there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of curiosity about it, in the sort of media world, my profession. It's weird, right? Where are the FOIAs? Why isn't the New York Times aggressively pursuing his medical records? It's just weird. Just a strange thing that I've noticed. And I don't know if you guys have noticed it too, but it's weird.
I'm just over here asking questions. I'm Joy Reid. Boy, she's going to be so good when Trump wins the election and is back in office. I mean, that's going to be some must-see TV if this is what she's bringing now. A couple of things, by the way. We know it wasn't a glass fragment from the teleprompter because we have pictures of said teleprompter panels completely intact after the shooting. Anybody with eyes can see that, but it doesn't matter because she's just asking questions. We also do know where the victims are in relation to where President Trump was speaking. They were to the stage left of the podium. We've got video, in fact, of the victims and people calling for assistance over there. We know that. We also know that the Secret Service determined that the threat was over when they did get him up and move him off of the stage. We know that. We also know, by the way, that Donald Trump did not pose for a photograph. He showed a sign of strength and defiance and resilience and courage that was captured by a photographer. That's not the same thing as posing for a photograph. This is a hateful, insane person who, by the way, if she was a conservative working for a conservative or right of center news outlet, she would be fired, if not having to defend herself from a potential lawsuit right now. Don't believe me? Ask Alex Jones. Please tell me what's different about what Alex Jones has said in the past about things that have gotten him in trouble versus what she has just done. She's calling this a false flag. She's saying that there were crisis actors involved. She thinks the whole thing was done to promote Donald Trump. You know that Donald Trump, he's so evil, he'll let himself get shot in the head to stay in power. That's Donald Trump for you. And I love the newfound curiosity and demand for medical records and information from doctors if there's a medical condition from someone under Secret Service control. Last I checked, there's a whole lot of questions about Joe Biden's health that we're not getting any answers to, but that she seems fine with. What an evil, evil woman this is. And the best part is MSNBC is stuck with her. They can never fire this woman. Isn't that beautiful? But it's not over there at MSNBC just Joy Reid that's showing the insane levels of hatred. No. Our pals, you know them, we love them, Joe and Mika. Joe was really upset about J.D. Vance being the nominee for vice president. Joe wants to run for president. You know that, right? It's been that way for years. And so he's very upset now that J.D. Vance is going to be closer to the Oval Office than he'll ever get. Listen to his reaction of his speech last night.
This whole populist thing is crazy. And this whole we love America and nobody else loves. How do you love America? If you're always saying that it's terrible, how do you love America when you deny we have the strongest economy in the world? How do you love America when you deny that we still have the greatest entrepreneurial engine in the world? How do you love America when you continue to tear down the strength of America's military, when you call them weak and woke, when in fact they're stronger relative to the rest of the world than any time since 1945? How do you love America when you keep talking about how terrible America is? That is the great enduring mystery I would love answered. And that is a great enduring mystery that I wish Democrats would actually ask Republican candidates.
We'll continue with this in a moment, but I just want to remind you that this is the political movement, a political party, and ideology that embraces the 1619 Project, that claims that the actual origins of this country is not from the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and the Revolutionary War and the fight for freedom and liberty. No. This country is defined by the arrival of the first African slaves on our shores, that's what we're really all about, and that's what's in our DNA. This is the same political movement and the same ideology you see displayed here that look at America every single day from a proctologist perspective, that we are systemically racist, that we are xenophobic, that we are transphobic and homophobic and Islamophobic, and that we're sexist, and that women can't get a fair shake here, and that we're trying to control women's bodies, and America is inherently misogynistic, and if we had our way, following our founders' advice, women wouldn't be able to own property or vote, and it would be the Handmaid's Tale. That's what we hear every single day from that political ideology. And this man dares, with his bouffant, bleach blonde hairdo, to sit up there and say, oh, how do you say you love America when you have criticism? No, we do love America. That's why we're criticizing the direction that the Marxists are taking it. What they're doing to America is what we don't like. How they're transforming America is what we're upset about. But I just wanted to point that out in case it was lost on you.
I think for J.D. Vance, his effort to sort of symbolize his transformation from venture capitalist to this version of himself was when he grew the beard. Like those old shots, he had no beard back then. Now he has the beard, and that's trying to symbolize his new political viewpoint. But you make a good point about this dark vision of America that we've heard from Republicans, when all the data doesn't really back that up. Yet we know there is sort of a post-COVID malaise here in the United States, other countries too. Inflation now cooling, but been too high. But by the numbers, America is as prosperous and successful as it's ever been in a lot of metrics. But yet, and that stands in stark contrast to the vision being painted, not just by Vance, but most notably Donald Trump. And that's why I do think maybe he'll stick to a script tonight and preach unity. We all know that won't last. His Truth Social suggests otherwise, that he will indeed go back to depicting America as apocalyptic. Thinking that resonates with his voters. We'll see if it does for the rest of the electorate.
I so hope that the Democrats and intelligentsia watched this show, took notes, and they put it right into their plan for every election up and down the ticket between now and November. I hope so. I know they watch this show. They're the only ones who do. And I hope they said, that's right. By the numbers, we have the strongest economy ever. So all of you people who are paying $5 for a dozen eggs and $10 for a pound of ground beef and $5 for a gallon of gas, all you people who can't make ends meet, whose pay increase has not caught up with the cost of the fundamental staples of existing in this country. All you people don't know how good you've got it because the numbers are there, baby. We've got 17 Nobel laureate economists who have said this economy is just fine. So all you people who are complaining, you are so full of shit. You don't know what the hell you're doing. You don't know what the hell you're experiencing, and you're wrong. We're right. We know better. The numbers are there, and this economy is the best. I hope that's the message going forward. Nothing elitist about that either. Other reflections, though, on J.D. Vance's speech, most notably from Alex Wagner, anchor at MSNBC. She saw through all of the patriotism and love for the Midwest and the forgotten people of Appalachia. She saw through all of the concerns about trade agreements that benefited foreign countries at the expense of the American worker and the American economy. She saw through all of that. And what she saw clear as day, of course, you know it, you love it, you got to embrace it. She saw what was really at the base of it, racism.
I know that there was not the same red meat sort of blood and soil nationalism that you might hear in, I don't know, other parallel universe Republican conventions. But I do think there were some sort of Easter eggs of white nationalism in the speech. One of the things that stuck out to me was when he started talking about what America is. He said, America is not just an idea. It is a group of people with a shared history and a common future. The thing about America is that it's not a group of people with shared history. In fact, I think a lot of people would argue it's quite the opposite. It's a lot of people with different histories, different heritages.
His in-laws don't share the history.
Exactly. And that's the other piece of it. He goes on, he went a long sort of a paragraph at least about this plot in Eastern Kentucky where his 6 generations of his family are buried. And his hope is that his wife and he are eventually laid to rest there and their kids follow them. And I sort of understand the idea of sharing the burial plot, but it also it reveals someone who believes that the history that the family should inherit, and indeed the history that should be determinative in the story of the Vance family, is the history of the Eastern Kentucky Vances, and not the Vances from San Diego, which is where his wife is from and where her Indian parents are from. But in America, it doesn't always have to be the white male lineage that trumps that defines the family history, that branch of the tree supersedes all else. And I just think the construction of this notion reveals a lot about someone who fundamentally believes in the supremacy of whiteness and masculinity. And it's couched in a sort of halcyon, revisitation of his roots, but it is actually really revealing about what he thinks matters and who America is. And that America is a place for people with a shared Western background. And that is the idea of America. That is the nation of America that he wants to resurrect.
Wow, those were some really fancy words from a Brown-educated Ivy League woman who now has the pleasure of being an anchor on a major cable news network. A lot of fancy words to basically say the same thing that we've been hearing for decades now. You conservative Republicans, you're white nationalist, racist Klansmen. But it was fancy, I have to say. By the way, coming from a woman of color who chose to marry a white man who was the personal chef of Barack Obama in the White House and is a political activist as well. I wonder where their burial plot will be. You see, there are two distinct perspectives on this country that we see. It has nothing to do with skin color, though. It has to do with the elevated elites versus the rest of us and the rabble. That's really what's at play here. Best personified by the elitist of all the elites, Rachel Maddow. Rachel Maddow's take on J.D. Vance is not dwelling in the ugly netherworlds of populism, as you saw from Joe Scarborough, or racism from Alex Wagner. No. She has a more elevated, hateful take on J.D. Vance. It has to do with his reading habits. I kid you not, this is not from Babylon Bee. This is not AI generated. This was real, legitimate political analysis last night on MSNBC.
Like Mr. Teal, who has named his companies after things in the Lord of the Rings series of J.R.R. Tolkien books. Lord of the Rings is a sort of favorite cosmos for naming things and cultural references for a lot of far-right and alt-right figures, both in Europe and the United States. Peter Thiel names all these things after Tolkien figures and places, like his company Palantir, for example. Like his mentor, like Peter Thiel, who had given him all his jobs in the world, Mr. Vance also, when he founded his own venture capital firm with help from Peter Thiel, named it after a Lord of the Rings thing. He called it Narya, Narya, which you can remember because it's Aryan, but you move the end to the front. Apparently that word has something to do with elves and rings from the Lord of the Rings series. I don't know.
That was legit. That was real. You should be really afraid of J.D. Vance because he's a fan of Lord of the Rings, one of the great works of English literature of the last century, a beloved book and beloved movie adaptation as well, made by Hollywood. It's really a secret white supremacist racist book, don't you know? And that's the real nefarious problem with J.D. Vance, is that he's all tokeny. My favorite part of that, by the way, was what was it? Narya is actually Aryan with the N moved. Yeah, anybody who likes Lord of the Rings has got to be a crazy right-wing, white supremacist, wacko Klansman, you know, like this guy.
But I'm just guessing that if you were into Dungeons and Dragons, you must have been into Lord of the Rings.
Yes, I was. I will just say this to you, Conan. Ellen Silla Lumen Omentielvo.
Or don't you speak Quenya?
No one speaks High Elvish in this room? These are not my people.
I said a star shines on the hour of our meeting, Conan.
Yeah. Yeah. Or are you okay?
No, I
Judge me. Go ahead.
I'm not
You won't be
judging.
the first.
I will not judge you. I respect your love of Lord of the Rings.
I have been judged on my love of Lord of the Rings.
You've had people actually get mad at you?
Yeah, I got some viewers on my show get mad at me because remember the 666, like in June, how everyone was saying, end of the world, Devil Day. And, well, CNN did a story on it, and they ran a picture of what they, purported to be a devil to talk about the Devil Day. But I happen to know that the picture they ran of the devil was actually a painting of a Balrog from the 1977 Brothers Hildebrandt J.R.R. Tolkien calendar. Okay?
This is all true,
This is all
right?
very true.
All true, yeah.
So I called him out on my show. I called BS on him, and I explained the difference between a Balrog and a demon. Very different, okay? Demons are angels who followed Satan into hell because he wouldn't serve God. Balrogs are Maya who followed Melkor to Thangorodrim because he wouldn't serve Eru. Totally different.
Okay. And so
Now, I need you to know that this is a very old clip. Stephen Colbert, by the way, looks very youthful there. And the more he moved to the left and became a public Trump deranged syndrome critic of the Republicans and the Trump presidency, it surely showed on his face, right? It's funny how these people age in such an ugly and hateful way when they become so, what's the word I'm looking for? Ugly and hateful. This was when Conan O'Brien was still broadcasting from New York on NBC. And the show Stephen Colbert is referring to, of course, is his old show on The Daily Show. So this has got to be almost 15 years old, I'm guessing, putting together my late night television timeline there. Tonight on CBS, as Stephen Colbert now does the Late Show there, which is supposed to be a late night comedy talk show, but it's become basically group therapy for liberals to scream about Trump. I have no doubt that he will disavow his love for Lord of the Rings, his deep devotion to that great classic work of literature, because Rachel Maddow has said that it's bad. And Stephen Colbert has to be right with Rachel Maddow. That's much more important. Much more important. So get ready for that tonight. And for those of you who, like me, enjoy their Tolkien now and again, who enjoy Lord of the Rings, oh, hell, if you're like me, and you either read one of the books or watch all 3 movies on an annual basis, just stick with it. Don't worry about it. We're on the right side of history here, and there's nothing wrong with you. I promise. Trust me. You're fine. They're the problem.